Welcome to the Why Not podcast, a motivational podcast where we discuss ideas behind innovation and change. I'm your host, Noah Cisneros, and I'm excited to have you here to meet some incredible people, discuss some life-changing ideas, and to have a fantastic time learning and growing together. Today on the Why Not podcast, we welcome Austin Falter, founder of Falter Media, award-winning video strategist and TEDx speaker. Austin has built one of Utah's fastest-growing video agencies by combining scroll-stopping creativity with strategic storytelling. His team produces everything from short-form social content to VSLs, comedy ads, and video funnels, and they've earned 2 Common Club awards along the way. Beyond his accomplishments, Austin is a storyteller at heart. He built his career from scratch, editing videos, learning marketing, coaching communication, and saying yes to opportunities long before he felt ready. Today, we uncover the story behind that drive, the mindset that fuels his creativity, and the hope that keeps him building. To set the stage for today's conversation with Austin, I have outlined a quote from Zig Ziglar, where he says, "You don't have to be amazing to start. You just have to start to become amazing." And Austin, as we dive into your story, I'm excited to see how just starting and taking that action has been critical for you and the success that you've seen. To begin, I'd like to understand, before the awards, before your agency, before the TEDx talk, what is the story someone needs to know to understand who you are?
So I was raised in a family of entrepreneurs. My parents were entrepreneurs their whole lives. My dad spent his whole career mostly in the MLM business, actually. So from a young age, I was going to events and hearing seminars, self-improvement, all that stuff. But then also he was obsessed with marketing, and he would teach us about marketing. And I used to skip class in high school to go to a book club with him where we would read like business books about marketing and about growing a business. And I remember when we read the Entrepreneur Roller Coaster by Darren Hardy. And I remember, just reading all these books and talking about them. And so that was like, I got the sickness from my dad for sure. And a lot of my siblings have created their own business because of that, because we were just kind of trained on how to do it and what to do. And so that was really cool. When I got to college, I wasn't sure though what I wanted to do. I got really kind of scared about the fact that, I loved creative outlets. I loved video, but I didn't want to make that a job where I was getting client feedback. I wanted it to stay in art. So for a while, I kind of didn't want to touch that. But in 2020, I was working a few jobs on campus, right? And I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And then my wife gave birth to our son. And it was a really complicated birth. Long story short, he ended up being life flighted to a different hospital than where my wife was recovering from C-section. So he's over in one hospital and we're here, and it was COVID. So no one could visit except for parents. So I'm driving back and forth between hospitals, and I would bring my camera every day and I would film videos of him and bring it back to my wife. And at night when I'm sitting by her as she's recovering, I would edit them up and then send them to our family who couldn't visit. And that was kind of the moment when I realized, okay, I love video so much. I love that it can make people laugh. It can make people cry. It can connect us. And I just fell in love with the medium. And when my son recovered, I went all in with my business. Thankfully, he's happy and healthy and doing well. But that was really the moment I can point to that I realized, okay, I can't do anything else. I've got to tell stories.
Well, that in and of itself is a powerful story.
Yeah.
And that's really cool. I appreciate you sharing that. And what a neat way to have your son, right? Yeah, your son be part of your journey, and for him to be able to look back and see the videos that you've created. Imagine when he's our age, and you're like, oh wow, that's really cool. That's fantastic. Good for you, Watson. Good for you. You mentioned your dad being a big influence on your drive, especially to start your own business and obsessed with marketing.
Yeah.
I love the fact that you were reading marketing books from skipping class to go to a book club. That's fantastic. I love business books and marketing books as well. Curious off the top of your head, your favorite 5 for marketing.
Shoot, man. Right now it's EOS. EOS is incredible. This year, what I've been doing is reading the book throughout the year, but I only read a chapter at a time, and I don't move on until I really, really implement. And so I'm still not done with the book. I have 2 more chapters, and it has changed my business. It's allowed us to scale. It's been great. So I recommend that one. The E-Myth Revisited, I think, was the most helpful one in the beginning. It's like the classic book you get in college if you're in any business classes, I'm sure, but it's just helps you simplify and realize what roles there are in your business, which roles you need to play in order to grow and to change from being a technician to, an entrepreneur. I love the Story Brand by Donald Miller. Great for storytelling, great to understand your path there. And then I would say, I'm gonna peek back at my shelf here. The This is Marketing by Seth Godin is like the Bible. It's the orange Bible of marketing, and that's another one.
I love it. The marketing Bible.
Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely. Yeah. The opportunity to read that one as well. I completely agree. That's cool. I appreciate you sharing that. I love books, and so I'm always taking recommendations, and I haven't read the EOS yet, so I'm gonna add that to the list, and appreciate you sharing that. You mentioned you mentioned in your story your dad and his impact. I'd like to know more about
Yeah.
your story there.
Yeah. So my dad, he actually passed away last November. And so it's been quite a year. I miss him every day, but what a legacy he left behind, and a little bit about him. So yeah, he did spend his whole career in MLMs, which is funny, but also he had a major impact on people in his company. He was like the heart and soul that brought the culture together. And so I would go to events and see people just flock to him, and he would in some ways kind of like minister to them in a way. Like he would really meet them where they were at, help inspire them, help them in their personal lives. He was like a friend. And in a company that large where you have so many like independent distributors that really they're doing their own thing, right? In MLM, you kind of are in charge of your own thing, and you're not really connected to other than like events. Like you've got, your team and all that stuff. But he would make sure that he would like call these distributors and recognize them. And I think that's something I learned so much from him, is like the power of recognition, the power of like no one isn't worth your time, right? In the end, no one isn't worth your time. And I would see other people in the companies, other leaders maybe look at it a little bit differently, but he always had that beating heart. The other thing he taught me, and the only times I really heard him argue a lot with his business partners was about charity. He was in charge of the charity organization for his company, and he would say like, no, we need to give more, we need to do more, we need to give till it hurts. He would say that all the time, give till it hurts. And so I learned a lot about charitable work and giving even when it's hard. I think that's so important for every company to have that in their values, to give back.
I love that. What role does recognition play in owning a business and running a business?
Yeah, I think as an agency owner, you've got to be able to recognize, obviously your team, and I'll get to that, but you've got to be able to recognize your clients and their wins. And you have to recognize the value that they add. As someone, I help people build personal brands. I help people with their podcasts, with their social media, right? And that there's a lot of feelings that come with that. Anyone who's ever tried to do that knows there's imposter syndrome, knows that there's ups and downs, and sometimes your funnel isn't converting and your social media flops or whatever. And so there's a lot of feelings, like human feelings, that come with it. It's not just metrics and data points. And so you've got to be able to get on your client's level, understand what are they concerned about, who are they trying to reach, what is their mission, and why is it important to the world. And sometimes it's like, honestly, sometimes my coaching calls are just like therapy sessions where it's like, okay, you need to understand who you're trying to reach, and it's just about like the mission rather than like the tactics. Recognizing their pains, recognizing their wins, that's something that builds long-term partnerships and relationships, and it leads to success in personal branding as well.
You mentioned you're part of your agencies, you provide consulting. Tell me a little bit more about like Falter Media and what it is that you offer.
Sure.
and how you help those clients that we're talking about.
Yeah. So, I mean, when I started, I was solo videographer. I was doing everything and anything, weddings and music videos and all of that, right? It morphed very quickly into serving the business audience, Facebook ads, video ads, commercials, testimonials. But then in 2022, I made a big pivot to social media. That was the way the world was going. And I had a lot of clients who were getting more traction, more success from organic social media posting than they were from Facebook ads, and paid ads. And so that's when I made the shift. And since then, we have served, podcasters, YouTubers, short form creators, getting their content out on every platform every day. We do a lot of editing and posting, but like an ideal client, a typical client, I will help them maybe set up their studio, build in something into their desk so they can film, and then maybe coach them a little bit. But then they send us footage and we do all the time consuming stuff on the back end, editing, posting. So when it comes to consulting, oftentimes it is a matter of like, hey, I'm getting this footage from you, but I'd love to see this, and this better. Or can you try this new type of reel? Or, getting people to experiment, step out of their comfort zone, try new things.
It's hard to do, getting people to
Yeah.
step outside their comfort zone. I've
Yep.
had the opportunities working in an in-house capacity now versus in the agency, and prior to being in-house, where I've had to coach individuals to be on camera. And I guess I've just lucked out to have really great talent in the past, such as yourself and others, where if I did need to cast, like I didn't have to really coach them. And I find that to be quite the struggle. Like what makes you so good at that? Because like, and like, I'm not just coming from like a biased perspective. Like I know like you have clients that are talking about that you're able to help improve. How do you do that?
Well, I'll start with the part that most people don't see is no agency has 100% success, even if it looks like that on every website. There are clients that are a fit and there are clients that are not. And so just because I have a perfect fit and oftentimes it works well, one thing I've had to learn is let go of those that aren't a good fit early. Be clear with them. Even in the sales call, sometimes I'm like, you're not a fit. Like, I don't really think I'm going to be able to succeed in your expectations. And learning that is really helpful because you don't want to onboard people who are going to be disappointed, who you're not going to be able to help. But how do you help those who are a fit? I would say you have to understand, again, what you're good at, what your expertise is. And then you have to marry that with, at least in the social media realm, with their mission, with their expertise. I always try to identify first who is their audience. And typically when I really truly understand their audience, everything else falls into place a lot easier. If I know exactly who they're trying to reach, then I know what content types their audience is going to respond to, what pain points we can focus on in our content. I know what platforms they're on because we understand their audience. So all of that really helps come into place, once you clarify the audience.
Awesome.
Yeah.
We got to get you in front of everyone as a TEDx figure. Yeah, no, that is a very, very well said answer. I'm curious, as you're talking about like understanding who is and who's not a fit as a client, what role does understanding who we are not, like what role does that play?
Yeah.
We figure out our direction, either in business or in life. Like how does that lead towards that direction?
Start off in business. My copywriting coach, Doug Pugh, he often tells me, if you haven't pissed somebody off by noon, then you're not marketing hard enough. I love that phrase. It's really your job as a marketer. You want to reach your people, but you also want to be very clear in the people you do not reach, to help filter and to more boldly reach your people, right? It's true for your own marketing, and it's true for your clients and understanding their audience. I think one of my clients struggles to niche down. They're just too broad. They're not reaching anybody because they're trying to reach everybody. One exercise I do with them at times is, okay, who are you okay offending online? Who is this not for? And sometimes people are like, well, I don't really want to be like controversial. It's like, that's fine. In every comment section, if you stand for something, you're going to have, who are you okay being in the negative comment section in your, and going through that exercise, it's like, well, I teach about, I had a client who helped parents teach teenagers how to adopt, technology and social media for the first time, kind of like a starter course, like, okay, you're getting an iPhone or whatever. And they're like, we don't want it to be controversial, but it's like, well, there are people who have opinions that you totally disagree with. Come up with that list, and that will help you see, okay, my audience is very counter to that. So it is helpful at times to think, who do you not serve? Once you figure that out, once you understand who your audience is and who your audience isn't, it frees up so much energy because now I don't have to please everyone. I'm not making content for everyone. I'm making content for one person. And by so doing, I'm going to reach everyone that's like that person.
I think that's a lot easier too to like think of it through that lens. Cause like if you ask like, okay, like define your audience, show me your persona, how to
Sure.
figure it out. Like it's like I don't know where to begin with that, especially like if you're not you don't have a background in marketing and maybe you're more on the
Right.
business side, right? It's like how do I come up with who I'm gonna speak to, who I'm gonna serve?
Right.
But if you can start by just eliminating who you don't serve and what audience you don't want to speak to, then eventually you'll arrive at the audience that you are wanting to speak to and the customer that you are wanting to serve. That's really cool. I haven't heard it applied in that way for the audience targeting or audience, anything audience segmentation, as well as your content and your branding. Kind of building off of that, you mentioned like helping clients niche down.
Mm-hmm.
You were one of the first to really embrace this idea of creating TikTok centered media, like as an agency.
Yeah.
Like I feel like it's a valid but bold claim to say you were the first TikTok agency on what
I
you
mean, there was very few. In 2020, there was a lot of like TikTok coaches, and any other TikTok agency I looked up and found 2022, it were all paid ads or influencer marketing. It wasn't like this. We were unique in that we helped brands create their own TikTok accounts and their own content. And we were kind of like an influencer farm. Rather than paying an influencer, you just make content that is creates influence. There was no one in 2022 doing that. So I was early to the game in that sense. Now there's hundreds of agencies, right? There's so many. It's wild how quickly that blew up.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, you started Falter Media at a young age and you really dived into that quickly, which is awesome. Diving into business fast also presents challenges. I'd love to know like what you've learned from like just diving in head first to
Sure.
now.
Yeah. Um, First thing I've learned is that anyone can start a business. A lot of people think that I'm crazy and that I'm like, take a lot of risks. I'm the most risk averse person that you know. I'm such an anxious mess, about everything. Thankfully, I had a lot of perspective from my parents, from my dad about business, but I'm risk averse. I don't want to do anything that's like crazy. And so for me, anyone can start a business, but because I started out of school when I had no money already, like that's why it wasn't crazy. It was like, well, I'm making more than my $8 an hour college job, right? I
Yeah.
understand that for a lot of people, it's going to be a lot harder, but anyone can start on the side. I mean, it's $50 to get a business license, and most businesses don't even need, you don't even need a license to start. You just need a client. So there's a lot that people can do. Things I learned in the first few years, I was really scared of that freelance model where a commercial would come in, I'd be busy for a month, I'd have a lot of great income, and then it was gone the next month and I had to find a new client. So I learned for my own mental health, the stability of the business, I needed to find a retainer model. And so once I found monthly retainer clients, I could hire monthly salaried employees or virtual assistants. And that was a game changer. We have a team of 22 overseas full time. And that would never be possible in my mind if we were on this like freelance model. It had to be a retainer because I know exactly how much is coming in, exactly how much salaries we can do, that sort of thing. But the other thing I think I took for granted because I was so, you got to be scrappy in those first few years. I didn't realize that some clients who did come in, for maybe it was just a short project, but they would come back year after year after year. And that every relationship really is a long-term client relationship. Every project can lead to more work if you just put your best effort in. So we really try to do incredible work on everything that's a fit, because if you impress somebody, they're going to share your name. They're going to come back. They're going to become a long-term client. And so we try to add as much value as we can in that way.
What about those projects that take a lot more effort and work and maybe aren't as profitable?
Guilty as charged. This last year, I moved into a niche that is very much less profitable. It's grown very quickly, and it's the most fulfilling work I've ever done in my life. But there are times when that comes into question, and I'm still trying to figure that one out. Because if I just love a project so much, or I love a person, or I love the mission, it can be hard to sort it out. Some things
Yeah.
that recently my kind of mastermind and business coach have helped teach me. is that you have to, even if it's mission driven, even if it's charity work or nonprofit work, you have to make something that's sustainable. No one wants you to go out of business because then you can't help them. And so even if someone, is asking for those discounts, those lower rates, or you're in a niche that's hard, find ways to either bring back the scope a little bit or increase the prices where you can. And I'm working on it. So I'm guilty as charged on that.
Well, it sounds like it's a balance between sustainability and treating every business relationship like a long-term relationship. We had clients come back, even though it was like a short project that wasn't as profitable, but you did a good job. But also, like to your point, you don't want to go out of business because you just business isn't necessarily just charity, right? That you need to be making money to some extent. Even nonprofits have to operate. So I feel your struggle there for sure, and I appreciate that insight because it is part of owning and running a business that a lot of people just don't see.
Yeah.
Like it's easy as an employee to get frustrated with a certain decision made by a business owner or an executive or a leader. But you often aren't privy to that type of situation where you do have to call the shots in regards to what is sustainable and what's not. How do you, and I realize like Falter Media is still a young company and it's growing quite quickly, but you've also had hard decisions in the past to make. How do you make those decisions? What's your approach there?
Again, because I'm a solopreneur and really bootstrapped this, we're debt free. We didn't take on a big business loan or anything like that to start. We just kind of slowly grew from nothing. Oftentimes what it meant for me was like, sometimes I don't have a choice. Like if, I have to shrink a team size, for example, or if I have to fire a client, or oftentimes it's like, well, this is the only thing that's going to get us through, I think those are the moments when I think the hard decisions, it's those moments where it's like, shoot, something has to give right now.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of choice. I think it doesn't feel like the hard decisions, but things that prevent that have been getting really good at the budgeting side of my business. Because I'm a solopreneur, if I nail that and I can forecast better and I can understand how we're doing in that sense, oftentimes those big decisions never come up or never happen because we planned ahead. We use the profit first method, things like that just help bring a lot of stability and a lot less of those scary moments.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that transparency and vulnerability. I think that's a powerful point. And also a side that a lot of employees wouldn't see. A lot of non-business owners just wouldn't have perspective on. So I appreciate you sharing that perspective because it is powerful and it is important, especially as we talk about ideas. Like you mentioned earlier, like anyone can be a business owner, which I want to ask you more about that. But I think part of being a business owner is having the emotional resilience and grit to plan financial plans and profit and strategy out, but then also being able to manage those tough decisions when they at some point arise. And I think you're a good example of being an honest and normal human. You're not like Jocko, right? We're just like, yeah, I never have any emotion. Like you're very powerfully vulnerable that way. And to hear your insight from your perspective on managing that, I think is very valuable. Tell me more about your idea that anyone can be a business owner. Like just tell me about all of these things.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I stole it
I'd
from
like to understand
Ratatouille.
that.
I stole it from Ratatouille, actually. Anyone can cook, right? Chef Gusteau. No, I just think that there are so many people out there who want to, and it really bothers me when I hear my friends or people that I just love so deeply who, they want to, but they think there's this huge risk associated with it. They think they have to like quit their job to start a business or something. And I think in most circumstances, you can do something, and there's typically very little risk associated with a lot of businesses. Like, don't quit your job, don't go out and get a huge business loan, but like start somewhere, find a side hustle, find something. And I wish people who wanted it would just get rid of that risk in their minds and realize that there are absolutely things you can do. I started my second business this year, and it's a book publishing company, and we're doing kids books, and it's not going to be profitable for another year or so, but it's going really well. It's awesome. It's really, and I just found like great partners, and it's something I enjoy doing. Right now, it's just kind of a hobby. again, I'm sinking money into it right now, but there's a path forward, and there was no there's no risk. I found the right partners, so there really wasn't a lot of risk. So I don't know. I think anyone can find something, and they just might need to learn a few things on the first few steps. But you don't have to have it all figured out at once. You don't have to have all the things, the website, the social, the everything. You just need a value to offer someone and a way to collect payment, and then you're good to go.
What if you're struggling to figure out what value you can actually offer? I hear you like
Sure.
wholeheartedly, and I'm not disagreeing at all. I just know like
Yeah.
for myself and others that I've talked to as well that have similar situations where like I want to start a business, but I'm really nervous to like that situation that
Yeah.
that gets you frustrated. Like I feel like that's a common reason or excuse.
Yeah.
But how do you figure out what value you actually have to offer?
Well, some businesses are very mission driven, right? And it's like this big thing that you're accomplishing or that you're doing. I think that's great. It's wonderful when it happens. I think most people work for a living, and then they enjoy their family and their life, and they work, but they don't necessarily enjoy work. I was talking to a friend of mine, and he was traveling overseas. He's in a taxi, and he asks his taxi driver, "Well, do you enjoy what you do?" He's like, "Enjoy what I do? This is work. I enjoy fishing. I want to be fishing." And I think in America we kind of don't have that. We have this like you have to like love what you do. So first thing I would say is like, is there a business you could start that would just help you financially? Like, does it have to be like, what value can you add? I mean, there's all sorts of businesses you can start that like service-based businesses. Like the quickest way to become a millionaire in America is probably to become a plumber. Like, there's so many different skill-based things you could do. So I would maybe start there. What value can you add? What skill can you charge for? Rather than like the vision of like, I want to like change the world, or like help starving children, or like, I don't know. I think that might be something that freezes people up. You go into business to make money. So find a way to make money would be step one.
Appreciate that. And it kind of goes back to what you were talking about earlier about having a business model that is sustainable and that actually enables you to stay in business. I agree with your analysis on America right now, where they're like, "Oh, you gotta love what you do. You gotta be passionate about your job." And I think
Yeah.
there is a place for that. Like a lot of times, a lot of people in marketing are drawn to marketing because of that. But I think it's Scott Galloway that says like follow your talent, not your passion. And it's for
Hmm.
that reason. It's like if you want to follow your passion, you'll probably end up working more and longer hours
Right.
for less pay. And it will be fulfilling, but like it's going to be a lot harder than if you just work for your talent and just it's a job at the end of the day. And you clock in, you clock out, you get your
Yeah.
paycheck. And maybe it doesn't provide you a lot. And
It's like the starving artist. You have people who, if you want to paint and then you want to make that a career, oftentimes like you're going to be struggling your whole life. But if you find a good job and create a good business or create value, then all of a sudden you have access to go and do the hobby, the thing, right? I think it's a good illustration, a decent illustration. Obviously, we want to find things that you love, but what do I love? I never want to love work more than my family, for example, right? My family that's it. So if you have to start a business that maybe isn't like totally aligned to your long-term vision, but it gets you out of the routine you're in, it gives you more financial options, go for it. Like start it. Start the low risk thing, and it's going to open up doors, I think.
I love it. Start the low risk thing, open up those doors. I love it. Kind of building off of that. Building an agency is somewhat art, is somewhat discipline. You and I have both worked for different agencies in the past. You obviously own your own agency, and I've seen it done a lot of different ways. I'd like to know how Austin Falter does it. Like, how do you balance the art aspect and the discipline, sustainability, the budgeting, the forecasting aspect? How do you balance those
Yeah.
two sides within the industry space?
It's a good question. I think again, I'm kind of a solopreneur. I feel that way. I have a team, but they're all overseas. They're all remote. And so for me, what do I spend my time doing? I try to build a system that works. I try to build a system that works for my clients. So let's say I have a client. A few years ago, I had a client, a doctor, and we figured out, okay, here's how we should run his podcast. Here's the weekly deliverables that we should do. Here's kind of our methods for making content engaging, the content plan engaging, all of that. Once I develop the system, I want to get that off of me and this goes back to the E-Myth Revisited book, help a tech. Right now, I'm acting the technician. I'm doing all the skill work in the business. And I want to be able to move into that entrepreneur role, but I'm doing the skill work. And so I need to be able to hire and train. And so that means I have to build a system. I don't just do the work myself. I build a system for the work. And then I pass off that system to someone else. And my whole time in the last few years in business, that's what I've been doing. I was the editor. Now I'm worse than all my editors because I haven't touched a project in years because I taught how to edit. And then I'm doing all the payroll and stuff for my own business. And then I was like, hey, I need to outsource that. And then, you just slowly replace some of the stuff you're doing so that you can focus on the bigger picture, the creative, the kind of that visionary role. But if you're starting, and I probably have a different perspective than a lot of agency owners in that I'm just a guy who was doing it all myself. So I've had to just learn to teach and train a lot.
It's a systematic way to scale though, which would lend to like why you've been so good and you have like growing your business within the time that you've been doing it. Like that makes sense. It's a systematic approach to scaling. And I think even big businesses need to adapt more of that mentality because it's a sustainable way to do it. Awesome. TikTok. You mentioned earlier that brands can create content that drives influence rather than using influencers to create content. Explain that to me.
So, I mean, it's changed. It changes a lot. When TikTok came around, they took everyone by storm. They were outperforming paid ads, a lot of this organic content, but also it was outperforming all the other social media platforms, right? And so Instagram's getting nervous, Facebook's getting nervous, LinkedIn's getting nervous, everybody's losing users to TikTok. And so pretty soon everyone copies them. So now you can make a short form piece of content that can go on every platform: Pinterest, LinkedIn, Snapchat, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, YouTube Shorts. It's crazy. It's just everywhere, right? So TikTok changed a lot. So a lot of brands are trying to figure, okay, well, how do we master our own organic content? And what they learned is you can't just like sell stuff, right? You've got to treat social media as social. You've got to entertain, or you've got to educate, or things like that. And on TikTok, it's even different because rather than just entertaining or educating, you have to do it in a way that feels non-commercial, that's like done on a phone or done authentically. Or if it is, have a nice studio, you have to really walk a fine line to make sure that it's not too corporate-y. It's just, there's so much to it, right? But if you can master that game of being able to perform in an algorithm and reach people with content that they actually like, they want to follow, but it's associated with your brand, now all of a sudden it's just free extra exposure and marketing, and that side of it becomes so beneficial. But you have to do it right. If you do it wrong, it's not going to perform at all. You can't just sell a thing. So short form is powerful, but it takes a lot of care. So what we did a few years ago, we developed a system for, okay, how can we make, daily content for a brand? And my first experience with TikTok was a friend came to me who had a client who wanted to post 3 times a day on TikTok for a month. That's 90 pieces of content. And so he came to me, he's like, can we do this? Like, how do we do this? So I put my producer brain, cap on. I said, well, if we, systematize it, we do all the scripting first, and we just have one film day with like a spokesperson and just film 90 pieces of content on a teleprompter. We could do that. And then, we'll edit it and we'll post it. And so we built that system out, and it was a home run. It was in the crypto industry. So there was a lot of hype in 2022. So that's part of it. But also TikTok was way different back then. And we did that. We did it 3 times, and each client would just knock it out of the park with these kind of spokesperson type videos. So that's when I found TikTok. Now, since then, it's all blown up and changed, and now we do things a lot differently. Now we have to worry about AI and making sure that our content looks human. Oftentimes, the stuff that people film that's just on a phone that looks more like it's native to the app editing rather than like a pro editor performs better. So we're learning that. It's changed a lot. But the big picture is you have to learn what people are going to consume and make it about that rather than make it about your business, and then it'll work, and then it'll grow your business. And if you don't do that, you're going to not reach anybody. And it's a fine line. It's a fine line.
I just think my business is so cool, man, and they just want to know more about it. Why wouldn't I just have a sales pitch every single post?
Yeah.
I love it, man. That's great advice. Yeah, and really good strategy. You mentioned that less highly produced content does better than maybe more casual produced content. Explain that to me, because like
Yeah.
in the corporate side, like you think, oh, the more effort, the more professional, the better it's going to look. It's going to represent our brand well.
Yeah. Well, if you want to learn what works on TikTok, go to the best brands and see what they're doing. For example, who's the fashion brand everybody thinks of? They're spacing on their name. I'm not into fashion.
I'm not either.
You have, oh man, I'm spacing their name. I used to use them as an example. Is it Vogue? Is it it's one of these European fashion like brands, right? And on their website, they are luxury. Everything on their website is luxury. And then you go to their Facebook and their Instagram, all the other places, and it's like really high-end stuff. Louis Vuitton. It's Louis Vuitton on TikTok. Then go look at their TikTok. And it's freaking funny. It's people on a phone. And sometimes they have a commercial that's highly edited or things, that a little bit or a skit. But they also just do the behind the scenes stuff because that's what works on that platform. You've got to contextualize it to the platform. So, if you think you're more luxury or your brand matters more than Louis Vuitton's, you just don't get it. Like, because I have so many clients who are like, well, but I want to look high end. It's like, no, you don't. You want to reach people and make money. And on TikTok, you don't want to look high end. You want to reach people. And so anyway, it's a whole battle. And you've had these conversations with clients too, where it's like, come on, guys, we got to sacrifice this a little bit. Okay, I lost my train of thought. Sorry. Thank you. What was the question? I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. We were talking about why lower production quality content performs better on social media and like the TikTokification of 2025.
Okay, thank you.
Than the high end production.
So the other thing to think about is at times higher production value does help in certain situations. For example, in-person podcasts, like high-end in-person podcasts, perform amazingly well. They do really well because you're in the same room with someone, you have that energy. It's hard because you have to have a whole studio and this and that, but that stuff often performs better. And so if you can go that route, I would recommend it. If you can't, then the selfie stuff is going to perform better for you. So it's kind of this weird where it's like certain types of videos are going to perform better, but it also depends on storytelling and what you're doing with it and not just the how you package it.
That's insightful. I asked a controversial question now that we've discussed that strategy.
Okay.
Is social media dead? I've heard a ton about it right now, so I want to hear your take.
Well, in a sense, yes. Mark Zuckerberg spoke to Congress in this year, right? He's there every year for something or other, having to defend himself. And he showed a chart, and I've showed this so many times in trainings and things because it's so sad. It's so depressing. He's got this big old pie chart on the screen, and then there's a little sliver, and it says 7%. And it was 7% of all watch time on Instagram is you connecting with your friends. The rest of that watch time is interest-based algorithm. It's not social media as we used to. It's not you connecting with your friends anymore. So in that sense, yes, it's absolutely dead and gone. But in the other sense, no, it grows every year. Even in America, I've seen a couple charts, come through where people are like, oh no, it's dying. It's not dying. Social media. I mean, I'm glad that some of like Gen Z might be, taking a break from it and things like that. But no, it's here to stay. It's just changed. And it's changed in that it's not social in the sense that you're connecting with your friends. Now it's all interest-based. As a marketer, that's actually great news because if I'm talking about my niche every day, I'm going to reach those people who are interested in that niche. And so it becomes a little bit easier to position yourself in a market rather than you're connecting through mutual friends and things. It becomes very easy to rank for certain things based on that interest-based algorithm.
So would you say it's more interest media instead of social media? Like we got interest media marketing now.
Yeah, it's something. It's something.
No, that's awesome. I appreciate that insight. And I think that's a very good view on adapting towards the algorithm changes as well as just in general as a medium, social media, be it LinkedIn, Instagram, whatever, like TikTok. That's a good perspective as brands are creating content, but probably not creating the right kind of content. If I'm a brand and I'm like, wow, this is really resonating with me. Austin's got his head on right. Like, I want to learn more about how I can work with him to generate this influential content. Where should they go?
Sure. Go to my website, falter.media, FALTER.media, or I'm on all the socials somewhere, so you can find my links through
Okay,
socials. Yeah.
awesome. And you mentioned your book company. I have little kids. I love getting them new
Oh.
books. Tell me more about that.
Yeah. So that's I'm a Latter-day Saint, and it's kind of in that niche, in the Latter-day Saint, religious book niche. And I'm working with a publisher called Little Saints Books. They're great. So
Good.
we're doing that. It's been a lot of fun this year.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. The whole idea behind the Why Not podcast was I was in a conference and listening to some speakers, and I was like, man, like it would be cool to do that, but like I don't know if I have what it takes. Like, why would anyone want to listen to me? And I was just like, like, well, why not? Why not just try to be innovative and do things a little differently? And as I hear your answers and hear your story and having watched you grow as a person, as a father, as a professional in the last few years, I feel like you're just someone that like instantly comes to mind when I think of someone who has self-belief and overcoming that imposter syndrome. So I'd like to ask you from your perspective, like when someone's trying to figure out why not, like why not them? What is your advice?
I've hit a lot of lows in the course of growing this business. And the last time is about last year, and my dad had passed away, and then I lost my biggest client of like 2 years, and I was like, what am I going to do? I was freaking out, really struggling with a lot. And in that time, I went to one of my communities of business owners and a mastermind kind of group, and I asked them for help. I'm like, where do I go? What should I do? And one of them, their answer was, if you focus on just like, don't think about where the next paycheck is coming from for a minute. Like, I know that that's stressful. Like, you're struggling with all this grief stuff, and then like you want to like make sure you can provide and things. But he said, don't worry about where that paycheck comes from, and find someone to just add value to. Like, just start adding value to your clients and to communities, like, and not just like serve them, right? But like in the business sense, like find ways to really add value to them. And I think that really helped me get out of this space of, I can't do this, who am I to, figure this out, to a space of, when I add the value, I feel better. I kind of get that confidence back, but I also, business came because of it. The more I've added value to people, the more it comes back. And that's just kind of how business works. It's like, if you're providing a service or if you're helping, it's going to grow. And so I think that's something I would say, is let go of the outcome and focus on the process of adding value to people. And it's the same in life. When I was a missionary for my church, I was out there getting real depressed, had that really low moment, similar to how I felt with the business. Like, what am I doing? And how am I'm not able to, accomplish anything. Who am I to teach people? And I got a letter from my dad, and he taught a very similar principle. He said, get rid of the worry about if you're going to be successful or not, or if you're going to make a difference or not, and just fall in love with the process of talking to people, the process of going out every day, the process, like, fall in love with the process elements, and you're going to learn to love the work you're doing. And it's the same lesson. I learn it over and over again whenever I have these moments of, now it's in business, and fall in love with the process, let go of the outcome, and you'll end up having better outcomes and getting your confidence back.
Powerful. Thanks, Austin. I appreciate you sharing that, and wonderful advice. Thanks for being on the Why Not podcast.
Thank
So
you.
good to see you, man. You always bring such a fun energy. I love hearing your advice. So thanks, man. I really do appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Noah.